Welcome back to another update on stimulus and Social Security changes. Today we have an update on the $1,000 stimulus check for seniors that Bernie Sanders wants to include in this next stimulus package. We have both good news and bad news in regards to when these stimulus packages might get done. So let's discuss the details in this video, but before we do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. So if you could do me a huge favor. Okay, so Bernie Sanders wants to include a $1,000 stimulus check for seniors in this $3.5 trillion American Family Stimulus Plan. Now, we've talked about this in my last few videos. There's a good chance it's going to end up in this stimulus package because Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and even President Biden all want to include it in this package. Now, Nancy Pelosi's original deadline to get this done was September 27th, which is coming up in just a couple of days. And on top of that, the government is trying to figure out the debt ceiling, which is going to cut off on September 30th and could make parts of the government shut down. Now, this is something that Democrats and Republicans usually vote on together, but Republicans are playing hardball with this and using it as leverage to try and prevent Democrats from getting their stimulus package done. This is for a couple of reasons. First of all, Republicans don't want to take the blame for increasing the government debt and increasing the government debt limit. This is something that Republicans are generally against. They generally want smaller government, smaller debt, and more free market. Democrats want to approve more stimulus, tax the rich, and expand the debt limit, which is the amount of debt that the U.S. government can take on, in order to approve more stimulus to fund the American Family Stimulus Plan and the Physical Stimulus Plan. Now, Democrats are saying that Republicans and Democrats should do this together like they usually do, but Republicans responded by saying that if Democrats are using budget reconciliation to do stimulus packages, they should also use budget reconciliation to raise the debt limit. This is technically possible. Democrats can legally use budget reconciliation to increase the debt limit and make sure the government stays up and running. The problem is Democrats don't want to do this because they're already having enough time getting the stimulus package done without having to add on the debt limit on top of that. So we all know that conservatives like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are making it very difficult to get this stimulus package done. Now, if you add on top of that raising the debt limit into the stimulus package, it's just going to make things even more difficult. Now, this is something Republicans like, right? Because they don't want to increase the U.S. debt. And on top of that, Biden's agenda will take a huge hit if they don't get either of these stimulus packages done. And recently in the polls, Biden has been taking a massive hit. His polls recently are down to about 42 to 43% as far as approval rating. And in some polls, his disapproval rating has crossed over 50%. Now, a lot of this is due to Afghanistan and the fact that it is currently getting worse. But a lot of it is because of the stimulus packages. These stimulus packages still have not gotten done. And the American people expected stimulus checks to get done more quickly. So Republicans think that if they don't help Democrats increase the debt ceiling and they force them to try and include it in the budget reconciliation stimulus package, it's going to make it harder to get that done. And if they don't approve more stimulus, it will further hurt Biden in the polls, setting up Republicans to potentially take over the House and the Senate in 2022, and then, of course, potentially take over the White House again in 2024. Now, when it comes to increasing the debt ceiling and trying to make sure the government doesn't have to shut down, Nancy Pelosi and Democrats in the House approved a bill that would keep the government funded until December. The problem is Democrats don't have enough votes to do this in the Senate without getting at least a handful of Republican votes. And Republicans have signaled that not a single one of them is going to vote to do this. Despite that, Chuck Schumer said that he just took to the floor to set up a Senate vote on Monday to move forward with keeping the government open and assuring that the government does not have to deal with a debt crisis. Monday also coincides with Nancy Pelosi's deadline to get the physical stimulus package and the American Family Stimulus package done. Now, the physical stimulus package is something that Republicans seem to be holding over Democrats right now as well. Now, this is the bipartisan stimulus package that was already approved in the Senate, but is sitting on Nancy Pelosi's desk in the House, waiting for her to bring it to a vote to fully get it signed into law. This is a physical stimulus plan that was expected to be approved easily in the House, but now we have some Republicans saying that they don't want to approve it for the same reasons that we just talked about. They want to make things more difficult with Biden. They see that Biden is slipping in the polls, and the last thing they want to do now is make things easier for Biden and make his polls rise once again. Some Republicans are looking at this as an opportunity to block President Biden's agenda and further hurt him in the polls so that Republicans can start to regain control of Congress. So now Republican leaders in the House are pushing for Republican representatives to try and shoot down this physical infrastructure bill. Now, despite that, we do have a handful of Republicans in the House who say they will be voting to approve this physical infrastructure plan. This is a big deal because if Democrats get 5 Republicans in the House to vote yes, there's a really good chance they're going to approve this physical infrastructure plan. Now, a lot of Republicans want this win for their states. They want to go back to their home states and say, guys, we voted and we approved to fix our physical infrastructure, which is crumbling. A lot of states have highways and bridges which are crumbling and are completely unsafe. And on top of that, they'll create hundreds of thousands of good-paying blue-collar jobs. Now, this also helps Democrats because there are a handful of progressive Democrats who don't want to approve the physical stimulus plan unless they guarantee that the American Family Stimulus Package is going to be approved as well. And given the fact that Nancy Pelosi promised conservatives that she would vote on the physical stimulus plan in 3 days, it's not looking like the American Family Stimulus Plan is going to get done before that happens. Some people are thinking that Nancy Pelosi might break her word with conservatives and hold off on that vote, but that would probably be catastrophic for negotiations, and it would make Pelosi look like she's not willing to keep her word. Conservatives would get upset, and then we probably wouldn't get the American Family Stimulus Package anyway. Now, progressives say that if the physical stimulus plan gets approved first, then conservatives are not going to vote for the American stimulus plan anyway because that is the main leverage that progressives have. Remember, conservatives want the physical stimulus package done, but they're not too worried about the American Family Stimulus Plan. They're not concerned about the American people getting direct stimulus checks. Quite frankly, most of them don't want the American people to get stimulus checks. One of the main issues that conservatives have when it comes to the American Family Stimulus Plan and when it comes to approving more stimulus checks is the fact that they want all of this to be paid for. They do not want to create more debt, and they want the entire $3.5 trillion package to be fully paid for. Well, the good news is Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer just announced that they have a new deal with the White House to make sure that the entire package could be paid for. And they have a framework that is adaptive, meaning that if this package comes in at $3.5 trillion, they could increase taxes enough to pay for the entire thing. Now, if they end up paring it back and doing, for example, a $2 trillion package, they could adjust their tax plan to increase taxes but not as much to just fully cover the $2 trillion package. So this is a plan that is flexible and adaptive to whatever the package ends up costing. The problem here is that Schumer, Pelosi, and the White House have not released the details of the framework, and they're keeping the representatives and the senators kind of in the dark as to what exactly these taxes would be. Now, this is frustrating, but very common. They actually did the same thing with the last stimulus package that had the third stimulus check. A lot of Democrats didn't know exactly what was going to be in it until a few days before they passed it. So it is frustrating, but the good news is that the leadership in both the House, the Senate, and the White House have come to an agreement on exactly how they would pay for this massive stimulus package. Now, with that said, a lot of things are still in limbo. Will Nancy Pelosi bring the physical stimulus package to a vote on September 27th, like she promised conservatives? And if she does, will moderate Democrats still come to vote for the American Family Stimulus Package? On top of that, Nancy Pelosi has promised that they will raise the debt ceiling by September 30th. That is just a few days away as well. So guys, we should have a lot of updates in the next couple of days. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will keep you posted as things develop. Now, as all of this is happening, we have Republicans who are still slamming Democrats, saying that if they raise the debt ceiling and continue to approve more stimulus, they're going to cause rampant inflation, and America is going to be in a crisis. Now, obviously, Democrats completely disagree, and they say that in a time when billionaires are paying $0 in taxes, all we have to do is tax the rich in order to pay for this, and we will not have inflation. Now, with that said, I always like to show both sides of the spectrum. Here we have Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina explaining why, in his opinion, he thinks approving more stimulus is a bad idea. So let's take a look, see exactly what he has to say. And guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
They're going to change your country. It's going to be more like Venezuela and less like America. This idea is going to be paid for by taxing the rich is a bunch of BS. If you took the entire wealth of the 1%, including their cars and their dogs, it's less than half we need to deal with the entitlement problems we already have. And you're growing exponentially the size of government. More government to pay for, eventually interest rates are going to have to go up. You're putting in motion, I think, the demise of America as we know it. You're putting in motion a government that nobody's grandchild can ever afford to pay. You're putting in motion the destruction of energy independence. You've declared war on the fossil fuel industry in this country. And you've not done a damn thing about China, India, Russia, or Iran. So the bottom line here is if you believe in energy independence, then you need to vote against this budget resolution because we'll lose it. If you believe that inflation is a death blow to the middle class, you need to vote against this budget resolution. If you don't know how much gas prices are going to be increased, they owe you an answer. So I'm going to ask this question for the next 15 hours. Do you have any idea, if all this becomes reality, how much increase at the pump will be affected by the average consumer in the next year? How much will our heating bills go up? As to the border-adjusted carbon tax, will it be inflationary? Where does the money go from the tax? Who gets it? Little details like this. All I can say is that everybody has a dream in America. There's the American dream and the American socialist dream for America. This budget resolution sets in motion an assault on free enterprise, the destruction of energy independence, incentivizing illegal immigration at a time we can afford it the least. If you don't believe these things, then you haven't read what's in this blueprint. Have you ever asked yourself the question, what the hell has happened in the last 6 months? Why are we up $1 a gallon at the pump? Because they've declared war on fossil fuels made in America. Why do we have a 262% increase in illegal immigration? Because they changed all the policies that work at the border. Why is inflation rising? Because the fiscal policies of the Biden administration and our friends on the left are driving up prices. The worst is yet to come. If this budget resolution becomes a reality, God help the American middle class. We'll be less energy dependent. Our money will go not nearly as far. You're going to have to dramatically raise taxes if you intend to pay for this monstrosity. And some Democrats have said it's got to be paid for. There's no way in hell to pay for this bill unless you fundamentally raise taxes across the board. At a time we're struggling to get back on our feet. So this is why we have elections. In 2022, this idea will be on the ballot. And my goal and my Republican colleagues is to fight like hell to stop the increase at the pump, stop an increase of your heating bills, and to stop an invasion of our country by illegal immigrants, all driven by bad policy choices. But everything they've done in the last 6 months pales in comparison to what they're going to do for this country if this budget resolution ever becomes a reality. So yes, sir, we're going to have one hell of a fight. I don't know how long we're going to be here, but as long as it takes, America is worth fighting for. And America, as we know her, is at risk.